The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Basketball Leadership Podcast. Here are your hosts, Steve Collins and Greg Berg.
Hey, Coach. We've kind of hijacked the podcast for a little bit, and we're going to give you a little bit of a taste of what I've been doing for the last month. I've been running master classes, kind of sharing some of my secret sauce as far as how to win the preseason, buy some of that time back. I talk about it a lot. We talk about culture. We talk about how to build philosophy in a winning program, how to a kind of season plan and practice plan before the season starts. We're just not waiting till it starts. And then talking about kind of player development, evaluation, assessments, all of those kind of things, everything that goes into the preseason. And you can go check it out. You can listen to the pieces here. You can go check out the whole thing over at winthepreseason.com. There's all sorts of handouts and stuff you can get over there. Hope you enjoy. Bye.
Buckets.
He's smarter than I am. I refer to him as buckets. Yeah.
I do the slides. Coach has got he's got all the info. So the three frameworks, the three buckets are: first, we have to build the program. All right. And we have to start that now inside the preseason. The second framework is we have to build a strategy, right? What we're going to be doing actually on the court to compete, to win. And then the third framework is how do we build up our players? All right. If we don't have one of these without the other two, or your program is going to struggle in one aspect. These are the three, the buckets that basically will carry your program throughout the season.
Yeah, and I always talk to you about this. It's like we remember things in chunks. I have the rule of three offense, if you follow me at all, because we remember things in groups of three. We remember things in chunks. There's a reason our social security number is in a chunk. Our phone numbers are in a chunk, just because you remember. And 3 to 4 values are the easiest to remember. So it makes sense that we have 3 frameworks or 3 buckets. But within those, I'm going to talk about things, what did we do to help build our program? And what do we do to do that in the preseason? What do we do as far as X's and O's and preparing for the season, and then talking about player development? I think sometimes that's a lost one as far as the preseason. People think about an off season or postseason, but they don't necessarily think of it in terms of the preseason.
Yeah. All right. So first, framework number 1, building the program, right? Again, inside this bucket, there's like 3 little buckets. So the first thing to build the program, we have to, 1, build the culture. We have to build the philosophy, and we have to communicate. We have to have a level of communication inside of our program to make all of these 3 work. These are the 3 core things we need to use to actually build the program.
And what I'm going to tell you with culture, if you go to the next slide, Coach, culture is, I think, one of the biggest things. And the way I refer to culture is it's kind of how you feel. We lost a little bit of our culture post-COVID because we shut down. We didn't have a season. We had to do some things.
The relationships. No one could be around each other around that time,
right?
Too.
So it goes back to the original story. When we were 7-14, our culture wasn't. I got the job. I got married in July. I got the job in October. The season started in November, and I knew I had to change. It was a losing culture. They had 5 winning seasons in 30 years, 5. And I had to come in and I had to change culture. I had to explain to them that we're going to practice 6 days a week. We're going to practice on Saturdays. You're going to be here on time. We're going to work hard. The prime example is, I think is my second or third year, I had to cut my assistant coach, who's still with me. I had to cut his son because he wasn't good enough. I had to draw a line in the sand and basically say, this is what we're going to stand for. Here's our culture. And when you think of culture, you think of the big picture as far as culture goes. Culture is kind of like, think about our culture in the U.S., our culture, what is expected. I always talk from Coach about tax day is April 15th. The culture says we're supposed to pay our taxes on April 15th. But building that is so important. The culture in my building, in our building, I bet today I saw 13 of my 15 varsity players. At some point there was a touch point. At some point they stopped and peeked their head in my room. At some point they said, "Hi, coach." A couple of them are trying to get into my class now. But the culture is, the culture is, it's okay that open gym's going on while I'm doing this because my assistant coach is running it. And they know that tomorrow I'm going to be there at 6:15 a.m. in the morning to get shots up. So those are things that have been built over time, and they're assumed.
It's kind of like a level of expectation. Like the captain can take a break, and the ship still is going in the right direction.
Right. The captain can go to bed on the cruise ship, and the boat's still hopefully not going to run into an iceberg, kind of thing. Yeah.
and that's the neat thing. It's like everyone, especially every new coach, knows this. Like you got to come in and you have to change a culture, and sometimes it's not changing it from. Sometimes, a lot of times, it's a poor culture, and that's why the previous coach was like, "Go, you got to come in, you got to change the culture." But again, culture, it's kind of like the atmosphere. It's like, what do the kids feel like when they say, "Hey, I'm associated with the boys' basketball program, the girls' basketball program." What's that feeling when we walk in the gym and we're walking into the school, thinking, "Hey, man, I got basketball practice tonight, man, I cannot, do not want to go." It's like, what's that feeling that they have? And the culture almost takes on the personality of the coach, even more so than the way we coach. Because every good mentor will say, you need to coach to your personality. I almost think that should be more associated with the culture that we build than even what we do on the court. Yeah,
and I'm going to give you some stuff that we did initially as far as building this. But you got to really put some thought into what you want. Maybe your assistants are the guys that are going to do the touch points. Maybe you're not working in the building. There's all sorts of issues that can kind of go on, or maybe you're an AU coach or a youth coach. So how you build that culture around that specific team is going to be a little bit different, but you got to put some thought into how you're going to do that, how that's going to make them feel. Yeah. It's a feeling.
Steve Kerr, I saw an interview with Steve Kerr, and he actually said, someone talked to him about culture, and he was, I think he went and saw Pete Carroll when he was coaching the Seattle Seahawks. And Pete Carroll's like, what's the culture going to be? And Steve Kerr's like, what do you mean culture? It's like, well, how are your players going to feel when they're in the gym? And Steve Kerr's like, he had to go back and reflect on that. And he wanted his players to feel joy. He wanted them to come in and have fun. He wanted them to also come in and work.
And feel safe. It's like my classroom. I want them to feel safe to come up and ask questions. I want we'll get into communication a little bit, but I want them to feel free to be able to do that. And the culture has to lead into that, or you're not going to know there's a hole in the side of the boat kind of thing.
I remember when I got my first head coaching job, the culture within the locker room was, it wasn't hazing, but the older kids were entitled because, hey, now we're seniors, and now we get to treat the juniors and the sophomores, the freshmen, the same way that the seniors treated us when we were that age. And it took me 3 years into my stint there to where I say, hey, upperclassmen, seniors, you need to go down and lift these kids up because you're leaving a legacy you want them to carry on. And next thing I know, year 3, year 4, I've got my juniors and seniors going down to middle school games. We're officiating youth level games. And now these little kids see the older kids and they have something to look up to.
And there's big change with that too, as far as how you tackle that and how you go about it. I don't want anyone to assume I'll play a freshman if they're good enough. Our culture is it's a talented and gifted program for basketball players, and if you're talented enough and you're a freshman, you're going to play. So, that entitlement needs that can be part of you have something you have to tackle, definitely, as far as culture goes. If you go to the next slide, Coach,
yep.
That this is something I believe I did this in Iowa, but this is about kind of building the leaders. So I did this in Iowa, and it was kind of talking about leadership. It was talking about pillars. It was talking about a kind of a mission statement. We'll kind of dive into that when we do the philosophy next. But this was a great thing as far as building. You want to do things with your team. Our culture, like I was dealing with my parent today, we're talking about our culture is team dinners. Our culture is that they're hanging out together. They don't have to like everybody, but they have to spend time together. We do a lot of traveling. We've been very blessed over the years to do a lot of traveling. And part of that is me just building culture. It's getting them together, doing a retreat. Sometimes I'll do this retreat in my basement. Sometimes I'll do it at the lake. I'll take them to the lake. Sometimes we'll do it on one of our road trips. But I want to build that kind of community that you get when sometimes they're away from their electronics and they're away from family and on all those distractions.
Yeah. So now if culture is, it's the atmosphere, it's who we are, it's how we feel, it's what we do every day that builds that. So what is philosophy to you in your program?
So philosophy is a little bit more leading it up to the players. So culture is the feel. It's year after year after year after year after year. So I think our basketball program over the last 25 years has a specific culture. It has an understanding. It has expectations. It has things that just are kind of assumed. Okay. We have traditions come tournament time. I won't share them all right now, but and that's part of our culture. And this is once the regular season is over and postseason happens, these rituals or things happen. That's the culture. Mm-hmm. The philosophy changes. Every year I have a different class. I teach 5 classes. Every one of them has a different personality. Every one of my teams is similar. So when I talk about philosophy, this is something that we build together. This is something that as a team, I want to talk about, what are we looking for in leaders? What are we looking for in terms of a team motto, or what do we want to stand for? What do we want someone to think about this group of 12 to 15 individuals when they walk into a gym? So like I've had teams, they'd walk, they're really athletic, or look at them, or, so these are the things that we want to stand for. 2 or 3 years ago, we had a group that just said, we want to be more grateful. And I said, what? I said, well, they said, we've won a lot. We want to be more grateful, Coach. How do we do that? And it's like, I almost keeled over, to be honest with you, from 15 to 18-year-olds. And I said, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can show gratitude. And we talked about, saying thank you. We talked about when we go on the road and, there's people there working. How could we do that? We've gone on road trips and people have opened up gyms. I said, here's how you could show gratitude. You can go up and shake the janitor that opened it up and say, thank you. I appreciate you doing this for us. When we go out to dinner, it's like some of those things, and they built that. I let them build that. So that was building. They said they came up and there's in the next slide. I think it's the next slide, Coach. I do a couple activities with my team, and I'll share these with you at the end. We talk about leaders and what we look for in leaders. And every year this is a little bit different. And then we talk about what are our standards? What do we want to be? We want to keep the locker room clean. That's one of the big ones always, because it smells, Coach. It's like, okay, well, how can we keep it clean? How can we show gratitude toward our managers or whatever it is? So I have them build that. And we talk about those specific topics and how we can go about it. And I do a specific one because I'm looking for leaders. Because sometimes the leaders they think are leaders are not the leaders that I think, or vice versa. And I've coached this is a Coach Myers thing. We do the foxhole test. I have them draw a big oval in their notebooks when we're doing like a scout or something. And it's like, who are you going to put in your foxhole? It's called the foxhole test. Mm-hmm. Who are you going to put in the top? Who are you going to put behind you? And I'm always intrigued. There's kids like, I know my son's senior year, there was a group that I thought I knew because I taught them since
we always have our leaders picked out from the coach's team. We always think we know who the leaders are going to be.
And there was a kid that I thought would be on every foxhole. I thought he'd be in every foxhole, and he was in one. And it was like, it caught me off guard because I'd known these kids. I'd been coaching these kids since they were 7 or 8 years old. And it was like, whoa. So I had to go back and reevaluate. But anyway, it's just, this is me kind of prodding and just trying to figure out what we want to do and how we kind of want to tackle it. I think that's kind of an important thing. We'll talk about the motto thing when we do communication.
Yeah, and when it comes to philosophy, like I said, so if culture is like the base, so I kind of go back to this one just real quick, because like philosophy, they're kind of like all the pillars inside the building that hold the ceiling up.
Yeah,
you know, because you have everyone's philosophy it actually will change as you grow as a coach. But you know,
my philosophy now, it's not the same as it was 25 years ago. That's a great analogy, Coach. I consider the culture the foundation, the cement, and then the philosophy is the pillars that's holding the roof up and making it so it's livable. And I've changed philosophies over years, and I am not the same coach I was when I was 22 years old, and my teams have helped me shift some of those things over the years by doing these things. I think that's as a coach, it's important to be reflective. It's important to simplify, but it's also important to know who you are. It's your why. What's your why?
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of the moms today when we were at the parent thing, and it's like, I know what my why is. My why is to make young men. I mean, to make basketball players, but I'm more excited that my head assistant is one of my former players. I'm more excited that one of my former players works for my brother now. I'm more excited about that kind of stuff, that hopefully I've had a little bit of that in that journey. And that's where that philosophy comes in.
And like some examples of philosophies, like I remember every time that I would fill out like an application or send in my resume, I would always put 3 philosophies on there. I got a philosophy of life and basketball. I got an offensive philosophy. I got a defensive philosophy. Those are like the big ones. And again, those should actually probably change over the years, depending on the personnel you have. Your offensive philosophy might change, but then you're going to have a philosophy, and we'll talk about a little bit of this when we get the X's and O's, but you're going to have a philosophy about inside. You have a defensive philosophy overall. Then you're going to have a philosophy, say, how do we guard ball screens?
Right. That's on that list I was talking about. It's like all of those things you have to, so it's micro and macro. You got to think small and you got to think big when you're dealing with philosophy. And then the third one, I think, is the most important, Coach.
Yeah.
So hold on, go back to that sheet one time.
Yep.
Go back to that sheet. So I will stay to the end, and I'll give you these. And there's a bunch of questions and some leadership things, and we'll share a video with you too of one of my leadership things. Like I said, I did in Iowa, that you can kind of watch and break down, and it kind of walks through some of these things that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's very cool. So